3.5, Graphing linear equations in slope-intercept form. First of all, we're going to talk about this idea of slope. So slope is the rate of change between any two points. So slope is going to kind of tell you how steep your line is. If your line is really steep, meaning you're walking up the mountain really fast, you have a fast rate of change or a large rate of change. Or your slope could look a little bit more like this. So instead of walking up a mountain, maybe you're just taking a stroll along a street that has a slight incline. This rate of change is going to be slightly larger. This rate of change is going to be less large. So that's what we're talking about when we're talking about slope. Now, the way we find it and the way we show it. When we're talking about slope in slope-intercept form, it's going to be represented by the letter M. So anytime you see M, we're talking about slope. The way you find it is you have 2 points, and the 2 points we're going to be working with is you're going to have an x1, y1, and you're going to have an x2, y2. Now, all these little sub things mean is that x, y, 1, 1, that's your first point. Okay, other than that, they don't mean anything. X, y, 2, 2, that's your second point. Otherwise, they really don't mean anything. As long as you're consistent with your order, these 1s and 2s really don't mean much. So don't let it confuse you. Now, finding slope, you're going to take y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. Now, another way of saying that is delta y over delta x. And if you're not going to remember that, write that down. That little Greek symbol that looks like a triangle, that's delta. And what that really is the change in y over the change in x. Okay, and the way you find a change in a number, if a number went from 3 to 5, it changed by 2. It went up by 2, so you would just subtract them. 5 minus 3 is 2, which is what we're doing here. The other way, and probably the last way we're going to look at it, is rise over run. And you're going to hear that one a lot, rise over run. So if you look at your picture, your y direction, your y's go on your numerator, is your vertical direction. So that's how far you're rising. And then your run is your x's, and that's how far you're running. Okay, you always have to go into the elevator before you go up the elevator. So you have to run to the elevator before you rise up in the elevator. That's something you guys have probably heard in the past. Now, when we're talking about slopes, we have a couple different types of slopes. And keep in mind, when you read a graph, it's like reading a book. You always read it from the left to the right. So if I start on the left and I follow this line, I'm going up. That's a positive slope. The line rises from the left to the right. If I keep reading this direction and then I pick up on this guy is going down. That's a negative slope. The line falls from the left to the right. A horizontal line isn't rising or falling. Excuse me. It's just staying flat. So that has a slope of 0. There's no rise. And then a vertical line is not a function. Remember, it doesn't pass the vertical line test, so we call that an undefined slope. And what would actually happen here is you would be dividing by 0 in the denominator, which is not allowed. Example 1. Describe the slope of each line, then find the slope. So the first way we're going to find the slope is we're going to do it graphically. Okay, and the first thing we're going to do is we're going to describe. So if I start on the left, okay, remember left to right, like reading a book. Put your pencil on the left and follow the line. Is it flat? Is it going up? Is it going down? This line to me is going down. It's falling as I trace it across my graph. So describe the slope of the line. This has a negative slope. Now, from a graph, slope is represented by the letter M, and it's always your rise over your run. Now, your rise is your vertical, your run is your horizontal. So I've got to get from my first point on my left to my second point on my right. And I first have to do my vertical motion and then my horizontal motion. So my vertical motion, I'm going to go down 1, 2. And you kind of go until you like line it up with this point. Well, if I'm going down 1, 2, that's -2. Then I'm going to run 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and I ran in the positive direction, so that's +5, which means the slope of this line is -2/5. And then if you take a look, you described it as negative. Letter B, describe the slope of the line. I'm going to start over here on the left. I'm going to follow my line. As I follow this line, I'm going up, so this one has a positive slope. Now, you have to start at your left point and get to your right point. So my left point, I'm first going to go, rise over run. So you have to do your vertical motion, then your horizontal motion. So rise, I'm going to rise 1, 2, 3, 4. And I went up, so that's a M equals +4. That's my rise. Now I'm going to run 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So I ran 6. So my slope is a positive slope, and it's 4/6. Now this slope you can actually simplify. So we're going to divide by 2, which is going to get me 2/3. Now watch this. 2/3. Rise 2, run 1, 2, 3. And you land on your line. If you do it again, rise 2, 1, 2, run 1, 2, 3, and you get to the same part. So whether it's simplified or not, it's still the same slope, except when I simplify it, I have to do it twice, and if I don't simplify it, I only have to do it once. But ultimately, we want the simplified answer. Letter C. First of all, describe our slope. Start on the left as you can go. Follow your line to the right. This one's going up, positive slope. Then once again, I have to make it from this point up to this point. Now I'm looking at this one and I'm noticing that this point is not actually on a line. It's kind of in the middle. So we have to be a little careful here. This point is at 2, -3. So it looks to me like this is counting by halves. This is like 1, 2, 3, 4. So -1, -2, -3, -4. So each half a box is actually one jump. So we need to be careful of that. Finding our slope, rise over run. So you have to do the vertical direction, then the horizontal. So I'm going to rise 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So I went up 7, and now I'm going to run. So 1, 2, 3. 7/3 cannot be simplified, and it is positive, which is what we guesstimated, so 7/3.